much for joining us here at the Cristo Rey Research Triangle podcast. We're so excited to have you.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thank you so much.
Awesome. So would you mind just telling our listeners just a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Maxwell Dziabis. I'm a theology instructor here at Cristo Rey. I'm 24 years old. I grew up most of my life in the Chicagoland area, and I recently moved here to Durham a couple years ago, basically with my whole family. Things I enjoy doing. I enjoy taking long walks in brisk weather. I am a bit of a retro video game collector, and I do a lot of online theater projects. So I have plenty to fill up my time when I'm not doing my job here at Cristo Rey.
Absolutely. It sure sounds like it. And super cool that you are from the birthland of our network, Chicago.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Really exciting. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what led you to education or even becoming a teacher here at Cristo Rey?
Yeah, for sure. So starting off, again, I moved here from Chicago. In Chicago, I had previously worked as a teacher's assistant at a middle school. And as someone, obviously, from Chicago, I was educated at a Jesuit university. Actually, I attended Loyola University, Chicago. I was well aware of the Cristo Rey network, right, founded by a Jesuit in Chicago in the 1990s. And actually, a couple years ago, before I even knew that I was going to be moving to the Triangle area, my sister, who was already living here, I was visiting her, and I was meeting with some of my online friends from my online theater project, and it was my first time on the American Tobacco campus, because that's where we met up. And it was the first time I ever saw a sign for Cristo Rey Research Triangle High School, which I think was either about to open or had just opened at the time. And on that day, in that, like, near that same place, I don't want to go into too much detail, but I had, let's say, a peculiar experience meeting someone, but something that struck me and sort of stayed with me, and that I would always think back and reflect on as something calling me toward a particular kind of responsibility. So my educational path in terms of how I became an instructor was a little bit unorthodox. I started off basically as someone who was training in academic theology. So my bachelor's and my master's degrees are in theology rather than divinity or education. And so I primarily spent my days in college and grad school as generally an open, energetic student. But in my own life circumstances, I found myself transplanted to Durham, and I saw that there was this opening for a theology instructor at such a unique school like Cristo Rey. It really seemed like not only the most helpful way to apply what I had learned, but also like a genuine calling to service, right? Helping those in my community through education. So all of those things really pointed me down the path to being an instructor here.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think a lot of other people here at the school feel the same way, that we often feel a certain calling to be led to tend to our communities as best we can. And once you hang out here at the American Tobacco campus, in a lot of ways, it's hard to leave. It's really fun place to be for sure. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the classes you teach? So, you're specializing in theology and religious studies here. What does that look like?
Yeah, for sure. So I teach Theology 1 and 2 for the freshmen and the sophomores. Those are the core religious studies courses for them. Each of them have like 2 halves. We're about halfway through the year now, so we just finished the first half for both my courses. For the freshmen, the first part centers on the idea of revelation, exploring this idea. Because Christians and many other people of faith believe that revelation is a way that God reveals who God is to human beings in a way that human beings can understand. And so thinking through that particular subject, much of that course then focuses on the written form of revelation, like scripture, and the first part focusing a lot on the Hebrew Bible or the Old Testament, which is written scripture for Jews and Christians. And through it, we're reading it, we're learning its themes, we're studying the fundamentals of who God is, like who God is revealed to be in that. And then now we're moving into the second half, which is who is Jesus Christ, right? It's about the person of Jesus, the New Testament, the major beliefs of Christianity. For my sophomores, we start off with salvation history, which is a study of the way, basically it's the narrative that Christians read scripture through, right? There's a single narrative running through scripture of God reaching out to humanity with love and promises of redemption through history. And then Jesus is the fulfillment of those promises, the fullest expression of God's love. Now we're moving into the next phase of that history when we're learning about the church. So after Jesus's Paschal mystery, right, what did Jesus's followers do? And how does that community of believers develop over time from 2,000 years ago to the present day, right? So yeah, those are the major subjects of what I teach in my theology courses.
Amazing. Really thorough history, it seems, for our students. That's awesome. So as you've known, because you've been with us for a while, we have a very unique teaching environment here at Cristo Rey. I mean, beyond the fact that we have a Catholic Jesuit foundation, you know, we have this whole corporate work study program. From your experience, what do you think really distinguishes us from other institutions?
Yeah, I think it's all of the things that you said in terms of our Jesuit values, our corporate work study program, all those things, but not just in terms of like that stuff that's on our school headline, but doesn't get applied into our day-to-day. Like it does get applied to our day-to-day, right? One of the things that we do that is each day our students pray the examen, which is a 5-minute reflective process over where a student reflects on their day in a spirit of gratitude, recognizes their own feelings, attempts to understand where God is present, right? One of the things that one of our major Jesuit values is finding God in all things, right? Especially in places that you don't expect. So cultivating that skill for our students to be able to look at things with a spirit of generosity, to be able to understand a greater divine or spiritual presence in their lives. That also applies to the Mass and worship services that we offer for our students at least once a month. And just in general, our pedagogy, right? The way that we teach, our attitude toward the students is absolutely rooted in the particular values of Catholicism, right? And what that entails means that we are rooted in a spirituality that is paired with reason, paired with knowledge that we can learn about the world through secular disciplines, right? So we're not an institution that tries to tell our students, you know, the world is not to be trusted, you need to be set apart from it, right? It's one that is engaging actively with the world, reflecting on it in a spiritual manner, and seeing in what ways can we be of service to our communities.
Right. And I feel like studies have shown that that type of reflection is actually one of the most powerful learning tools. So I'm so glad that we've made it a point to really incorporate that into our students' daily lives. That's awesome. So, I mean, and these kids are going through a lot. I feel like we just got over a big COVID hump a little bit ago. Social media is crazy sometimes. So,
Yes.
in your opinion, what do you think are some of the significant challenges facing our students today?
Yeah, I think the things that are facing our students beyond like uh, the institutional things within our world that has led them to the position that they are is, and this is something that I think a lot of, with all due respect, a lot of older folks have a more difficult time wrapping their heads around, that for our students, they have never existed in a world where the internet was not immediately accessible in almost every single situation of their lives, right?
Yeah.
You know, even myself growing up as a relatively young person, the internet was around, but it was a place that you logged on to and you left, right?
Right.
There was access points to it, and it was incredibly helpful, but it wasn't omnipresent the way that it is now. And so our students are digital natives, right? The digital world existing on top of this offline one. As a result, like there is a lot of opportunity for a level of information knowledge transfer that's never been possible before, a lot of real ingenuity that can come from students being able to tailor what they want to learn to like anything that they want based on what's accessible online. The flip side to that, though, is that especially in recent years with the ways that many of our digital platforms have shifted from, like, you know, Web 2.0 into stuff that is all algorithmically based, the level of disinformation present and the increasing difficulty it is to separate that from trustworthy information online is probably the largest hurdle I can see in that particular realm. And so being able to develop critical thinking skills to sift through what data is trustworthy, what isn't, how should we even approach the data that we are taking, right? And taking it a step beyond rather than just relying on it as a crutch. I know those are all very sort of higher level things, but like that is ultimately, I think, at the core of what I observe with students in general. But what I love with Cristo Rey, with our Jesuit pedagogy, it's a great way to get students to closely examine, critically engage with stuff around us, right? In the humanities courses, like the one that I teach, we spend a lot of time reading documents, looking carefully through them, getting the practice of reading and being able to extrapolate points beyond just, you know, copying down what something says on a sheet of paper, right? And so our extensive humanities training, also the AP courses that our school offers, really helps them critically engage rather than being passive receivers.
Absolutely. No, I think those critical thinking skills are so important, and you're so right. The amount of disinformation in the world these days is incomprehensible, and the most that we can do to prepare these students is to read thoroughly, think critically on their own, and to try to come to actually some really sound decisions. I think that's great. So what do you think would be your goals maybe for your Cristo Rey students? This could be academic or personally. This could be theologically or not, you know?
No, yeah, that's a wonderful question. And when you approach the subject of teaching theology or religious studies, particularly in a school like this, you have to approach it from a few different angles, right? Depending on what sort of students that you have and what their backgrounds are, right? And so the main goals that I try to get across academically, part of it is basically additional humanities training, right? I'm also someone who I have an English degree. I studied theater as well. So like theology is, in my mind, just like one piece of a larger puzzle of taking in the world around us, right? And so supplementing a lot of what they do with English and social studies with similar kinds of tasks. And also having biblical and religious literacy, right? Regardless of their faith status or how extensively they practice their faiths, if they have any, being able to understand Christianity as this fundamental or really important worldview of how Americans and people around the world engage with each other is really essential, right? Being able to, understand, or even just as simple as being able to understand biblical references in the books that they read or the shows or the films that they watch and they think about, right? Personally, also, I try to build in space for self-reflection, for spiritual growth, right? To be able to look at their faith and look at these sources and critically engage with that so that they can come out of it more spiritually strong than they were going into it, if that's what they wish to get out of it. And then also imparting on them, regardless of faith, the principles of Catholic social teaching. Things like affirming the right to life and dignity of every single human being, understanding that human beings have a call to family and community and participation in our society, to recognize human rights and the corresponding responsibilities that those rights entail, a preferential option for the poor and the vulnerable, the marginalized in society, right, are the ones who need the most attention. Workers' rights, solidarity with each other, caring for the environment, all these things that are super essential to the Catholic way of engaging with the world that I think all people of goodwill should learn and should know how to engage with. And in the process of advocating for themselves as young people, deserving of respect and a voice, they can also then learn how to advocate for others who can't do so themselves.
Yeah, that's so true. And I mean, okay, so speaking of advocating for others and things of that nature, so as an educator here at Cristo Rey Research Triangle, how do you feel like you approach creating a supportive or inclusive classroom environment?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I make no secret about myself being a Catholic and the school being a Catholic institution. But much of the material that I teach, especially in my first, my initial coursework, is ecumenical in the sense that if people are coming at it from a perspective of being a Christian who is not a Catholic of any stripe, right? It's either things that will apply to them, or I always make sure to consider perspectives that are shared in common by Christians, right? Or rooted in moral ideas, spiritual practices, even common to other faiths and understandings of the universe, right? So being able to recognize those connections where they are, and something that I have contributed to with my theological education, is knowing those ecumenical, which is inter-Christian and interfaith, knowing those commonalities and how they can grow to a shared understanding of how we're supposed to engage in the world. And then also, when I'm teaching, for example, the biblical texts to the freshmen, I'm primarily doing so from the perspective that approaches them, firstly, as literature with common themes to analyze, like they would analyze literature in English class, but with the understanding that these are also holy texts, right? That billions of people are essential, that say something about who God is, what humanity's purpose is, right? So I'm sensitive to all of that. And then when I'm teaching my sophomores about the Christian approaches to how Christians view history, it's with the understanding they can choose to identify with that understanding or not, right? My approach is I don't want students to feel like they need to regurgitate the content of beliefs that in some cases they might not hold or care much for, but I do want them to appreciate, to study, understand the depth of Catholic tradition so that they can consider and critically evaluate it for themselves.
Yeah, that's amazing. And for anybody who doesn't know, we are accepting of students of all faiths. And that's one of the
Absolutely.
reasons why Max works so hard to have such an engaging, options for his students, because we understand that while everybody who joins us may not be Catholic or Christian themselves, we like to let them have a chance to review some of these values, some of these ideas, and to think critically about them for themselves and what it means for them. Absolutely. It's great stuff. So, what do you think as a teacher here at Research Triangle, is the most rewarding aspect of your work, or if there's any specific moments or achievements that left like an impression on you?
Yeah, I mean, I will say it is very hard work, right? I don't think anyone's under any illusion that
Yeah.
teaching is a difficult profession. But yeah, there have been times where I have managed to feel like I'm really doing something of value, right? That I have a sense of reward. There's been a few faculty of the week trophies. I think I even got a teacher of the month once last year. But besides like those sort of like awards, it's like really it's the personal connections I formed with my students, right? Each day of hard work, that's what makes it worth it, right? When we can share jokes and we can actually have in-depth conversations about these things. When they ask further questions about the material or are trying to clear up misunderstandings that they or other people around them have had about stuff, I find that really rewarding. And also just in the sense of developing as a teacher, right? I've seen my students be more and more engaged as my pedagogy has improved with the help of my academic coaching, because that is a wonderful thing. Some bumping back there.
A little bit of construction, everybody. Hold tight for us for just a moment.
Okay, I think we're clear. But yeah, that's another fantastic thing about the school is like the amount of rigor of academic coaching also that faculty get to go through, right? When you come here, the Cristo Rey teaching style, the way that we structure classes, the way that we talk about assignments and skills and all the things that we balance with that from the teacher side, sometimes it's very different than a lot of people, especially folks who've been teaching for a long time, are used to. And so sometimes there's a bit of a transition or adjustment that has to be done. But for me, coming in relatively fresh as an instructor, I found it incredibly helpful at being able to organize my lesson plans and teaching in such a way that as I develop, as I align closer to each of the structures of that the Cristo Rey network offers, I see that increased engagement from the students. I see greater academic achievement. And so that has also been incredibly rewarding.
Yeah, I've experienced that myself. I do feel like the school goes out of our way to nurture us professionally. And every bit of that nurturing allows us to pour that back into our students and what we do every day. And I do find that, especially us in such of a small ecosystem as we are here, compared to the public school systems that I went through, that are a lot of the areas around here, the type of individual attention and things of that nature is just phenomenal. Yeah. All right. Well, looking ahead, what do you envision for Cristo Rey Research Triangle High School, especially when you think about how we could impact our students or our surrounding community?
Yeah, I mean, just in the time that I've been here, I've already seen, right, the positive impact Cristo Rey is having on students. I mean, I started off teaching, it was a sophomore class at the time. Now, as I see them grow and develop into young adults, right, in the other classes, even though I don't teach them anymore, I do see them really develop as people. I know next year, when we will have 4 different levels now, right? We'll have for freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior classes. It will be 4 full classes. I'm very much looking forward to having the yearly traditions that our school has, our unique culture, be passed along to the next generation, right? And once that is really set in stone, once we've had all these classes go through full curriculums across our 4 years, I think it's really going to make a big difference. I think the school culture is going to be ingrained in them even more so. And it's also exciting to see like so many more corporate partners joining our school, right, as the years have gone on, and giving our students more opportunities to demonstrate their real like ingenuity, right, their skills, their courage, their heart to the whole community, right? So beyond just what they're doing in the classroom, right, what Cristo Rey students are doing with their corporate partners and around Durham, around the Research Triangle area. I mean, I absolutely can see it as becoming not only incredibly well known across the whole triangle, but like sought after, right, as a central piece, as a really popular option, and the idea that there will be middle school students who will say, Cristo Rey, that's where I'm going to go, right? That's what I want to be.
Right, with that level of excitement, absolutely. And for anybody who doesn't know, right now we are only 3 years old. We started with freshmen, now we have freshmen, sophomore, juniors. And what Max is saying is that we're all really looking forward to, once we have that full four school years next year, and we have our seniors and our first graduating class, we can really start instilling a lot of those traditions and a lot of our engagement with the community at a higher level. So we're all really excited for that future growth that is right around the corner.
Yep.
All right. So do you feel like there's anything else you want to share with us about Cristo Rey, or any message you'd like to convey to our YouTube channel today before we sign off?
The main thing I just want to say is I am so blessed to get to work at the school. You know, there really isn't any other education like a Cristo Rey one, especially not anywhere else in the state, right? So I'm hoping anyone who's watching this, who's considering attending, sending their children, helping the school in any way, right? Please come take a look, and I look forward to meeting you.
Yeah, give us a call. Log on to www.cristoreyrT.org, and you can apply if you are a student. You can apply if you are looking for a new job. We are hiring lots of teachers right now. If you are a donor and you would like to consider donating to our mission, we would greatly appreciate it. Same as if you're a volunteer. We have a lot of local university volunteers that tend to help out with us. Helping hands are always appreciated. So for anybody listening today, head to our website, join us. We would love to have you. And thank you so much, Max, for talking with us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Morgan. Thank you so much for having me on.